is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the T Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
Well, we were just talking about taking a trip to Spain. Dan and I both have gone to
you need a travel show.
Barcelona. No, they don't want to be called Spanish there. They're Catalonians.
Yes,
Okay.
that's true.
They don't like that. And it was kind of interesting, Dan, even though, like you said, it's not our favorite place over there. And, the Las Ramblas, you got to walk that thing. And
Pickpocket Mile.
Pickpocket Mile. But I was in a cab with a cabbie who spoke really good English. In every building over there is like these 4-story buildings. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of apartments, no houses. So I said, so everybody lives in an apartment here. He says, well, they're all condos. And I said,
Are they like row houses like in England?
no, 4 stories.
Oh, okay.
4 stories. I said, so what do they cost? He says, all of them are about the same size. All of them are about 1,000 square feet. All of them 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Most of them. He said, that's the norm. I said, so what do they cost?
3-bedroom, 2-bath, and 1,000 square feet.
Well, they're small rooms, but in
Yeah.
Europe, all the old stuff is pretty small. Look, if you go
Yeah.
back in our
Oh,
history,
yeah.
we had a lot of small, big houses, small rooms. Anyway, he said this is 20 years ago. He said about 300,000. And I said, well, how in the world can you afford that? And he said, you have to understand, these are in families. When you get married, you marry a family.
Okay.
And
they're going to help you with a place to live.
oh, man, big time.
Well, they have to.
Yeah.
How else do you get a
There's
place to live?
There's no room at my house for your wife to move in.
And it was just kind of that. And I said, because I don't care how well you do as a cab driver, you're not making 300.
No.
You have to be
And
making
he pulls out his gun and says, well, maybe.
maybe, right? But how many people can you hold up? If I don't have my fanny pack on.
Well, I would never want to live there, but I mean, the city there is very similar to some of our big cities.
Yeah. Yeah.
The congestion is bad.
Yeah.
People have attitudes.
The difference when you travel, though, usually in this country, when you travel, you know where not to go.
Well,
When you're abroad, you really don't know where not to go.
And what you say is true. Nancy and I have been to places, and we've gotten off at ports, and I can vividly remember Nancy saying, we wouldn't walk through a place like this back home.
But every single place you go on a cruise ship, I don't care where you go in the entire world, you get off the ship, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's
But there's
the
strength in
Caribbean.
numbers.
That's the Caribbean. Not in much of Europe. As you know, most of the commerce was done by boat.
Yep.
So that's where the port started.
Right.
So that's one of the oldest parts of the city many times. So they don't have like massive port rejuvenation projects like they do in the Caribbean and other places. These are old, nasty places.
However, like I did the Greek Isles,
That's different.
you get off the boat and you're running a gauntlet. And I like this one. So I'm walking the gauntlet. And this guy goes, yo, come on in my store. And I go, what? And I said, what are you doing? He says, come on in. I said, where are you from? He says, I'm from Jersey. And I said, what in the world are you doing here? He says, I came over here to go to vet school. I couldn't get into vet school in the States,
stuck.
so I got over here in vet school. He said, no. He said, I met my wife in vet school, and she's a native here, and they only allow so many vets per population. You don't get to have two on the same block. He said, so she's got the job. So instead of her having the store and me being the vet, I have the store. I'm the wife. So buy something. It was so funny.
Yeah, the same thing happens in Jamaica. They lure you into like one little place, but then you don't go back out that same door.
No.
You keep going
You
deeper
got to
and
go to the
deeper
back
and deeper.
where the purses are.
Yeah.
Well, I probably told this story on the radio, but I'm going to tell it again. So I'm on this same cruise, and I want to get away from where all the tourists go. So I asked the concierge.
So you don't want to hang on the boat.
I don't want to hang anywhere near the boat. So they said, you're going to go to this town, which is the home of El Greco. Now, this is, I forget where we are, but anyway, Crete. And so we drive like 30 miles to get to this town, and you get out of the car, and you'd swear Zorba the Greek would be walking down the
Dancing
street.
around.
I mean, people were out. It was like a Sunday afternoon, pavilions and food and bands, but they're playing.
Do they do that for the tourists, or is that just an average day?
This was locals.
Okay.
It was locals. So they had very little touristy stuff, but they had one alley street. You walk it. You walk it. So being this dumb tourist that I am, I stay away from where all the people are having a good time and the food and the bands.
You go down the alley.
And I go down the alley, and as I'm walking down the alley, I'll go by this door, and I look in the door, and there's this old lady. Now, she may not have been old, but she had the widow costume on, black from head to toe.
Right, the Greek costume.
Sitting way in the back. And at the end of the alley, it's dead end. So you got to come back.
Okay.
Now, I met the greatest salesman I have ever met in my entire life that day. So we walk by, and now she's standing at the door, and in her hands, she's holding homemade cookies.
Okay.
And she holds them out, and she goes, "For you. For you." She hands them to me. Now, you got to pretty much take them. Then, once I got the cookie in my hand, she goes, "Please, come in my store." Then she gives me something else. Cost me $100 to get out of that store.
Yes, absolutely.
I bet she had 100% closing average.
She reeled you right
She
in,
was
Joseph.
so good. It was scary. I could just see that. I bet you if I could have filmed it, she would have had the exact same presentation every
For
single
the next
time.
guy.
Oh, she's
yeah.
been working. She has it down to a science.
It does. She does. 340-1590, 340-1590. And this is the Dan and Joe Show. Back in '04, Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, Joe Martek, financial advisor, said, let's do radio shows. So we went to Greg Fasula, attorney, and said the same thing to Greg. And Greg says, why?
Why not?
Well, Dan and I said, why not? We all have different areas of expertise. We can answer questions for people. They'll call in, and we can help a lot of people. And it has worked phenomenally well, to put it mildly, over the years. Dan, I always get a kick out of it. Not every week, but every so often I bump into somebody, and they said, "You're Joe Martek." And I said, "Yeah, you're on the radio. I listen to you."
I have that.
You know, and it's kind of a rush just to have that happen.
Well, what I like, Joe, is when we have somebody who calls with legitimate questions
Right.
or something that we can help on. I mean, right now, as we all know, it's political season.
Oh boy.
So there are a lot of people that are confused, and I know we've read some of those amendments before, and I see you've got some again.
Yeah.
I couldn't make it last week. Was Bulldog ever able to
No.
review some of those
No,
for
he
us?
never did.
So we need to review
Actually,
them
he
ourselves?
kind of hung low last
He
week.
hung
He didn't
low.
even
No,
call.
Bulldog was here, see, in town.
Okay.
So I met
He was
him
busy?
at the Tiki
At the
downtown
Sneaky
Stewart.
Tiki?
Sneaky Tiki, and he bought me a couple, 3 scotches, and I think maybe he might have stayed longer than me. And he,
Well, I was going to go, but unfortunately, I had a cold thing, and I don't like to be around people when I don't feel well because I don't want other people to get sick. You know.
How considerate of you, Dan.
Well, I hate it when people come around
Didn't
me
do
and they
that
go,
to you.
"Oh, I'm real sick," and I'm
Like,
going,
why
"Oh,
are
and
you
why
here?"
are you here?"
the amendments.
Sorry, you gotta
the,
leave.
The amendments are my problem.
Well, you know, they're vaguely done, or it's a bait and switch, or they give you something good, hoping you don't read down to the bottom.
I sat and Googled them.
Yeah.
I Googled every
Well, the
one
one
of
I
them.
hated
Well, let me-
was
did
at
you-
the end
did
where
you
they
vote
say,
for any yeses
"Oh, if you want
on the
this,
amendments?
you're
I
going to
did,
have
yeah.
to let judges
Which
become up to
amendments
75."
did you vote yes for?
I did a yes on the gambling one
Okay,
because of their commercials.
let me just tell
You
you.
like their commercials?
Well, the commercials. It was the no commercials that made me go, I'm supposed to vote yes.
Anytime I'm not sure, I vote no,
Well,
no.
let me just tell you where the gambling thing that I
Yeah,
heard.
I did a lot of Googling.
If this thing passes, they might be able to put a casino in a county where people don't want it.
What I liked about the commercial that was vote no, where they were saying, don't take away our slot machines because the money goes to schools. And I'm not real hip on these
Boy,
these
I guess
these
not.
spin and win
I'm
places
having a hard time buying
in
that.
every shopping center.
Okay, what about? Okay, so the homestead property tax exemption.
Well, the cap that's ending.
Which one?
There's one where the cap is ending. That's something we already have that they're asking us to keep it.
I voted yes on
Yeah,
that one.
yeah,
Why would I
why not?
change?
Yeah.
But didn't it seem kind of odd to you that it said that no one can own property currently. Well, people from Canada have been buying property here for gazillions
All over the
years.
world. Look,
So
at Miami would be empty if it wasn't for South
it
America.
sounds to me like they're lying to me from the beginning.
Yeah. It's just all kinds
You know,
of
the
stuff.
one which says, victims need to have more rights. Well, I know victims have a lot of rights, but at the end it says, oh, and if you do this, we're going to let judges stay on until they're 75.
That's the reason
I'm
I
sorry.
voted no
Yeah,
on that.
I'm going to say no for that.
What
No.
about the dog one?
The dog one?
Hey, I'm that's a business.
Well, no, you
Should
know,
we
let
vote
me-
someone
I
out of
have
business?
I have another take on that. Let's get Bulldog on the radio, then we can talk more about the amendments. Hey, Bulldog, it's Joe. You're on the radio. Bulldog. Well, guess what? Our producer doesn't know how to push a button. Are you there?
I got nothing.
You got nothing?
I got nothing.
Hi.
Are you there?
I'm here.
All right, so we're going through the amendments. What do you think on the dog one?
Oh, the dog. Oh, ban dog racing.
I don't think it said ban it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because
Okay,
dogs get hurt
I'm
racing.
against.
Read it. What does it say?
Okay, let's see the dog one. I pull it here.
But they
See, I
put
Googled that
something
one,
else
too.
in it at the same time.
There you go.
They got a rider on it.
It says phases out commercial dog racing in connection with wagering by 2020. Other gaming activities are not affected.
So
Now-
if you have a kennel club like the Palm Beach Kennel Club,
Right.
and I can tell you from having been there from the time when it was a popular place to today, most all the money's made downstairs in the Texas Hold'em part of it. That's what it says. We want to phase out the dog
dogs.
racing
Well,
part
wouldn't
of
they
it.
just, as a business, be able to change their business if they wanted
I don't
to?
know. I
Well,
don't
bottom
know.
line is
See,
if
but-
people are not going to see the dogs,
But the
then they're
commercials
going to phase it out regardless.
that are for ending the dog racing, it's all about cruelty to the dogs.
Well, let me stop you right there for 1 second. Here's my opinion. Bulldog, listen to this one. Next will be horse racing because we're being cruel to horses. Next will be football because we're being cruel,
Well,
cruel
next
to
you'll be
athletes
able to-
making $10 million a year.
But you'll be able to vote any business out of business.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey,
So-
but don't take away my pro wrestling.
That's right.
Oh, but men can get hurt. We should vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
well, wait a minute. No, as long as it's girls wrestling, we're okay with
in
that,
cabbage, right?
right? Well,
Mud wrestling.
in mud wrestling.
Mud.
That's okay.
Cabbage.
Or pudding.
Pudding, right?
Hey, no. Hey, you didn't go to Biketoberfest. I did. So,
Anyway, yeah, in mud wrestling.
anyway,
It looked a little slow this year.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
What
That's
about
okay.
restoring rights to vote for criminals?
Oh, felons, yeah.
Oh, may I say something on that?
You're going to.
If you restore their vote to their right to vote, shouldn't you restore all their rights? Meaning that if they're a sex offender, they shouldn't have to be on a list and register
those
and
are
check in.
but they're eliminated in
And-
that.
oh, so we pick and choose what rights they should get
Yes,
back.
2 of them are eliminated.
But they're going.
Now, wait a minute. Let's consider one thing here. First of all, if you're released, you're not getting voting rights until you complete
Pay your whole thing.
probation,
Okay, but they're
right?
not going to give gun rights back.
Oh no, ever.
Okay.
The key
But
thing
they're
that-
saying, a debt paid is a debt paid.
Here's the key. It's not the whole thing, but the argument is we're one of a very few states that does not restore.
Well, then if you're a
that's true.
felon and you want to
Move to
vote,
that state.
Move to that state if you want to vote. Okay. We beat that one up big enough. Is there anything on here, Bulldog, that you like in any of the amendments?
That homestead one you were talking about, I voted against that one.
So did I.
I don't see the merit in that one
No.
by a long shot.
What happens is it doesn't affect the school taxes, which are the biggest portion of taxes to start with, but there's no such thing as lowering taxes because somebody has to pay the tab, so they got to raise something someplace else in order to pick up
What
the
they
slack.
should do, Joe, everyone should pay something.
I know that's
So the first
But that's-
50,000
but that's
of
not on
every
this-
house
well, that's
should
logical.
be paid.
I said that years ago.
but that's
Why
not
is it
on
like
this
that?
election. I'm
So
looking.
the answer is no.
Okay, so the answer on that one is no. Anyway, Bulldog.
The other one is, I hope you all voted to keep the DVA.
Which one was that?
boy, don't make me.
Well,
quote
Joe's
on
got
numbers,
it. Joe's got the ballot.
Keep the what?
Keep the Department of
Veterans Affairs.
Well, no, they want to change it.
Yeah.
I voted no on that one too. We've already got it.
Yeah.
Why do we
Well,
want?
there's more to that too. They want to make sure things are done in a different way than, I don't know.
What's wrong? Hey, what's wrong with the way it is now? Bulldog.
Well, the thing about it is they want to change how things are run, and it's more of a.
What I'm trying to find is where are they? They're not very specific
very
on the change.
vague.
It's vague.
If you Google though,
it
there's
is.
a bunch of different places. There's like
And
ballotology or something.
if I don't totally understand it, it's an instant no for me.
See, there's my problem. Because we already have a Department of Veterans Affairs. We already have all kinds of stuff. And
But since Trump said if you can't get in quick, you can go to your own doctor.
And you can.
Maybe this is a way to change that. I don't know.
I don't know.
It doesn't say.
Doesn't anything about right.
So if I
It's
don't
not-
know, I'm going to assume they're trying to take advantage of me.
I would assume the same thing, but I think that what they're saying is they're trying to restructure the DVA.
But then
Well,
tell me how.
But yeah, here comes the key. They're always trying to restructure the Department of Veterans Affairs.
But
Always.
isn't that federal? Isn't that like is it
It is a
state
federal-
by
it is-
state or is
no,
it federal?
no, that's
So
a
why
f-
is it on the state?
I don't understand that at all. Why would it be on a?
It's at a state level because it's under a state's control in a lot of different areas.
But aren't the rules the same for every VA hospital, for every VA clinic, for every
Oh
VA?
no!
And vet
no.
benefits.
Not
that would
the
come to
no. What I'm
that.
talking about, the services may not be the same. It might be inferior at one, but aren't the rules the same?
I don't know. I've never gone.
You're the man.
I think
Bulldog.
that has to do with how the administrative part of everything that they.
Well, and you are very, very correct on that. It's getting into the system and everything is basically you're going, in your state. When I've dealt with Illinois, I've dealt with Texas, I've dealt with Florida on multiple occasions, and they're all different.
All I'm looking at is they lumped in so much stuff on that number 10, state and local government structure and operation.
Yep.
They just lumped in like 8 or different things that are in there, and I'm having a big problem trying to figure out what it. Like Dan says, if I don't understand it, just hey, when in doubt, don't.
And that's what I said. That's what I said because the thing about keep the DVA.
Yeah.
How you voted on that, but that's cool. But when you start lumping these other things and
There comes-
well, then
I said-
that's what they're probably trying to change. The other
and
stuff.
I said the whole restructure thing, and you didn't. You had to read into that
Yeah.
and say, they're trying to restructure more things. But the problem is, boy, I tell you what, I hope you vote by mail or something because I wouldn't want to go to the polls because the lines are going to be huge.
Well, Dan and I were talking about.
It's going to take for
when you vote by mail, they put it in a special box in the
Yeah.
back in case they need it.
But
Yeah.
see, the early voting though, the early voting kind of brings a little bit of that pressure off on voting day because
I like voting day to see how many people show up.
Yeah, I do too. I had
don't
to
mind,
do it
I don't
early
mind
this
standing
year.
in line for half an hour. I really don't. I like to see the people that are there.
like I show up right at opening and I'm the first person in line.
Uh-huh.
I don't
But if
wait-
I'm
I'm
in
not
line-
You must
waiting
go
for
at 6 in the
nobody.
morning
I
then.
go to the chapel by the sea.
Uh-huh.
First person in line.
Oh, I thought you went to Archie's.
Well, if you could vote at Archie's, that would be a good
Hey,
idea.
Bulldog, I got another phone call. Let me take another call, and thanks for your input. Hey, and thank you for the 3 scotches you bought me rather than the 1.
Of course, sir.
Of course.
All right, my man.
Would I do anything less?
Yeah, well, that's what you said, but somehow or other I got 3 out of you, so I owe you. I owe you. All right, my man. Tell Mary Beth
right.
I said hi.
I will do that.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
340-1590, 340-1590. Lou, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio. Maybe
There we go.
did we lose Lou?
No, it's that button doesn't.
That button is
Yeah,
Lou.
it's a
You're
bad
now you're
button.
on the radio.
We're still here.
Okay, go ahead, Lou. You're on.
with regards to the VA stuff,
Go ahead.
now someone said that, you can go to your own doctor. That is way offline. Way offline.
They didn't say you didn't
When
have
I
to
have
pay for it.
Yeah. Well, when I get something, I go to the VA substation over in Fort Pierce.
Yeah.
Now, they have to give me approval in order to make it down to West Palm.
Wow.
Now, the only time that I have gotten a service to where I went to a regular physician was for my eyes, to get glasses. And I had to pay for that.
Well, what they're saying with the VA, you have the VA benefit. Now, if you're over
Right.
65, you've got Medicare. You got a double whammy there, so you can pick one or the other.
Which means you
Well,
can go
I
to your
am,
regular doctor.
Huh?
I am right at the verge. I'm at 64. So
Well, hey, listen, you're in limbo.
You're getting close.
You're getting close. If you were Catholic, you'd be in purgatory.
Stay healthy.
I am.
Except for your eyes.
Well,
Except
you're
for
doing a beautiful job over there. I want to congratulate you all and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Lou, for calling in. 340-1590, 340-1590. Speaking of special guest prosecuting attorney retired from the great state of Wisconsin, you got any political advice here to throw into
Let
this?
him roll a little closer.
Into this
Roll a
picture?
little closer, Alan.
I do have a political thing to talk about, but not on the amendments. Did you hear what happened 2 days ago when Hillary Clinton was interviewed?
I heard this morning.
We
from our
think we
producer.
heard it, but tell
You
us
wanna tell
again.
it? We didn't say it on the radio. We'd like to hear it on the radio.
Well, what happened was, and I verified this, it was on YouTube last night.
Well, if it's on YouTube, it has to be true.
It's the
No, but
gospel.
it was on the network television. It was
What
on
network?
TV. Which, do you know what network it
Well,
was?
it was Fox, but
Fox replayed it. No, the interview wasn't on Fox.
no, but
Her.
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know the original network, but she was being interviewed.
She was on friendly territory.
Yeah.
Let's just
Okay,
say
so
that.
she felt at home.
and
Yeah,
and the
very comfortable.
the moderator mixed up Cory Booker, the senator, and the former attorney general in the Obama administration, Eric Holder.
Correct.
Mixed up their names. Hillary corrected them and then said, quote, "It's hard to tell the difference. They all look alike."
Yeah, and that was that's a pretty. Now, if it was Dan and me, we'd understand.
Now, you're getting very little coverage of
None.
this.
No
but
kidding.
None.
if Trump says one word out
Oh,
of line,
it would be-
it's
it would be-
mega.
Listen, it was, which leads me into a non-political kind of political statement. When I walked in the door here, the owner's husband came to me and said, "Everybody's scared poopless." And I said, "About what?" "The market." And I said, "Why?" "Well, it's gone crazy." And I said, "And your point is?" "Well, everybody's afraid things are. We're into the strongest economy in probably the history of America, consistently staying above this 3% GDP, full employment, to put it mildly, full employment. Everything in the world is humming and doing magnificently. And what happens is, and Alan, you and I have talked about this, but the stock market is directly related to the companies that it follows. And if a company makes profits and goes up in value, their stock usually goes up in value. Now, once in a while, we have what's called a correction. Now, why do they call it a correction, I have never figured out, but that's the magic word, where I consider it the big boys run out the little guys so they
I
can make
usually hear
profits.
them say it's profit taking.
Profit taking. It's a better, that's a better analogy,
Yeah.
is it not?
Yeah.
Well, isn't that
Profit-taking.
smart? Isn't profit taking smart?
Well, and
Yes.
but you ever heard of this, buy low, sell high? Well, the average person, they buy high, sell low, because you get a euphoric, and that's when everybody says, "Oh, everything is perfect." Well, the people buy then. Wrong time. The Oracle of Omaha said it very simply. He says, "I buy when everybody's depressed, and I sell when everybody's happy." It's the same thing.
But you would think that if you're up, you should take some of that so that when it does go, it's going to go down.
It's sort of like gambling, right, in the stock
Sure.
market. Now,
It
I will
is.
tell you, when I go to Vegas or I go somewhere to play gamble, if I'm ahead of the house, which means I've won.
Do you leave?
No. I take my money back.
Okay.
Now, what do you do with it the next day?
I play with their money.
Okay.
And what do you do the next day?
I start all over.
So
I know exactly what I'm going to
do
start.
you ever
with.
come back with any money?
Absolutely.
See, I walk in the door and I say, here it is, take it all now. And just get it over with.
And where's the bar?
Where's the bar?
Where's the bar?
Well, it used to be.
So isn't that the same thing? If you're in the stock market and you've won some from the house,
Yeah.
you say, hey, why don't you sell a little bit? I'll take my money back, and we'll see what we can do with the earnings.
But if you heard the word greed,
Well, absolutely. That's how most people lose their money.
that's how they lose. So, and I've told people repeatedly, and I've got one right now. He said, Joe, did you sell yours? I said, yeah. He said, why'd you sell? And I said, let me just tell you something. My stomach can't stand the fluctuation when it starts to get at that magic number. So I sell when I make a profit and I get out. What else did you get into? And I said, I'm not sure yet. I haven't found something that I want to speculate in. I will talk a little bit about that because that's really not true. I have got something I speculate, but it's not, doesn't have the potential of hitting a home run like buying Ford back at $1.80 and selling it at.
But don't you think some of this concern is over the rise in interest rates? And don't you think that interest rates when they were zero, when the Fed gave the money away, was
Sure.
ridiculous? And so if it goes up to a couple percent, so people can put some money into a bank account, let's say, and not get 0.1%, and now they get 1%, which is next to nothing, but it's something, isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Did you hear Trump say, if only I had 0%?
Free money?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, can you imagine how great it would be
Of course.
now
Well, there's
with 0%?
What happens is, I also heard one of the big heavy-duty guys making all kinds of money, multi-billionaire on the radio, and he said, what is this about interest rates? He said, we are really pretty close to zero because our inflation rate is 2. If the interest rate is 2, that's a wash. He said they talk about normalizing. What's normalizing? If it was 1 above inflation, that would probably be normal, which would put us at 3.
Right.
Which
But
we're
he's
not.
speaking logic, Joe, and people are overreacting.
Isn't that a scary
Because
thing?
if you're used to getting free money,
Yep.
and now your mommy says to you, I can't give you the free money, you have to make your bed now to get the free money, and you freak out. That's the same logic.
Well, I used to just get beat. Forget the money.
Forget the money.
340-1590, 340-1590. And speaking of Mike Paulus, which is, we had not talked about the other team members yet. We got a little bit sidetracked with talking about politics here.
Yeah, I've been listening.
No, go ahead. It'll just pull it off.
Yeah, Mike's on the radio, and yeah, we've been, we had Bulldog call in, and he's a little vague. I don't know. We talked about the amendments here, which most of us, Dan and I, are pretty much into the no phase.
If I feel the slightest bit of apprehension, it's a no.
So you're closer.
Yeah, I just don't like how they're mixing different items into these amendments, and and it is quite confusing. I've been reading through them. Half of them I understand, half of them I don't.
Well, there comes the problem. And when Dan and I looked at them, too. So they throw in judges going from 70 to 75 on something that's got nothing to do with the judges as
Right.
part of it. So it's called a no.
I say no anyway, because give someone else a chance.
But I'm also, even though I'm a dog lover and I really am not big on greyhound racing personally, I am voting no against that because, to me, the next thing they do is say, okay, horses can't race anymore.
Yeah.
We can't have.
Well, not even just the
and
know
the kids
the
can't have
gambling.
turtle races either, because
Yeah.
you pet
Or
turtles.
we don't like your business, and we're going to vote you out.
Yeah,
And I find it hard to believe that someone in the dog racing industry does not appreciate dogs. It's like being a horse breeder and not appreciating horses.
That's true.
Let me give you another thing, and I want you to know this. We both know a couple of people that drive around in trucks with dogs, and they go hog hunting. Now, you want to talk about something that's a bit risky with a dog, but
Yes.
But if you start talking to people about, hey, now let's take that away from people. All of a sudden we're into a pretty severe problem. So,
And the one thing, Joe, don't forget that many of these proposals were not voted on by the people.
No.
They were put in by politicians.
There you go.
And if you're going to amend my Constitution, it ought to be instigated by the people, and enough signatures to put it on the ballot should be required.
Yeah, and you were talking earlier about Amendment 3, and that is backed by Disney and the Seminole Indians. And personally, I don't understand why the Seminole tribe has to have the monopoly on gambling. I just don't understand that.
But I don't want it on every corner. See, and voting no was.
but there's a problem.
It's
The-
confusing.
The yes and no on that one is the only argument I heard was that if we vote yes on this thing, and it allows gambling wherever people want it. I can buy a chunk of land in Hendry County where they don't want a casino, and I can put it up, and there's nobody over there except the people that live there.
You can put slots in any strip mall, and we went through that
Oh, I
already,
thought
and
we
they
were
closed up a whole bunch of
I
them.
thought you were talking about strip joints.
No, strip malls.
They're regulated too.
They're
Joe.
regulated.
Well, I know in Mississippi what they did when they brought in gambling, they went to the poorest counties.
Yeah, yeah.
And they put them there to create employment for the people.
Sure, not create more trouble in
Are you
places
talking,
that are already
you talking
trouble.
Biloxi?
Yes.
Yeah,
some other
right.
places.
That was sure
Tunica.
All I know is I'm voting no on it just because I don't know.
On principle alone, right?
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the system. Let the Indians get even with us, Mike. You know, it's let the white man.
But then that would be a yes vote.
Yes, then you have to vote yes.
See, you have to vote yes.
It says here, the amendment ensures that floater voters shall have the exclusive right.
But if you Google it and you go into like the League of Women Voters explain it, and then there's this ballotology.
But do we have to believe the League of Women Voters?
They tell you what yes
Are
would
any of
mean
those
and what no would mean.
Are any of those Democrats?
Well, I'm sure some of them are.
I can tell you this because I gamble at the Hard Rock. Okay, so one day, I used to see the Native Indians there all the time, and then all of a sudden they've disappeared.
They barred them.
They got too much money. They can't afford to go in there.
So one day I noticed one. He was working at the concession stand, and he had all this gold on him. And I said, "Oh my gosh, you're back!" I said, "You guys disappeared on me." He says, "Honey, we've made so much money, we don't have to show up anymore." It's exactly what he said to me. He said, "We are so rich, we do not."
But see, I would rather have it there though than next door to Little Caesar's Pizza.
Yeah.
There's a
when I'm
reason why
shopping.
the Seminole tribe put $17 million into this.
Well, listen, guess what? They spent $17 million. Somebody got a job out of $17 million worth of job. And listen,
The printer of that. Form.
all I know is that casino gambling, I mean, I'm happy we don't have it in Martin County, and I'm happy we don't have it in St. Lucie County. But I'm not against it. I'm just happy we don't have it.
Yeah, it'll turn into a little Vegas. That's exactly.
But it won't be that nice.
No,
It's
yeah.
not going to be that nice.
Yeah,
Well,
I
we,
know,
we,
but
we could be Jersey City. We could be, it's
Atlantic City.
Atlantic
yeah, like
City.
City.
You know, I just don't want to walk by it when I go to pick up my pizza.
All I thought, the way I read the thing was that it just no longer, like you said, Mike, it isn't just the Indians. It can be anybody that can build a casino as long as
We could start our own casino.
nothing. Hey, Mike.
Well, you could still do that. They have those little arcades.
That's
But
not
see,
a
that's what
casino.
they're.
Yeah, but that's
Well, Joe,
like
you-
that.
That's what
they're
they're trying
making
to
a lot of money.
That's
So
what
you
this
play in
stops.
the biggest arcade
Stops them
there is.
also.
Well, it stops
in the
them.
stock market.
Yeah. Well, we got two arcades. We have the real estate market and we got the stock market.
True. Well, they stopped them once before and they came back.
Other than that, Miguel,
They figured a different way to pay you.
what's going on in the mortgage business?
They're breaking the law.
It's been a little bit on the slow side. The biggest thing, and I'm sure Victoria can account for this. There's just a lack of inventory out there. If you're out there looking for a house, there's just not a whole lot to look at.
Well, the thing of it too, Mike, is, and we had just gotten, and I had printed it out that, we're down about 11.8 or 6%. They were saying that everything. No, we're down.
Down what?
We're down.
Sales?
Yes, sales are down, and the reasoning is that they say it's a rebalancing right now, even though that.
Is that like a market correction?
Yes.
Profit
That makes no
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, and as they're saying, these sellers keep raising their prices higher and higher, but no, they're not buying it. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
They have to readjust these prices, even though there is some inventory. People are walking away from certain
if
things.
people aren't buying, and I have a house for sale at some point, we all know there is a certain price that everything will sell. That's just that.
Absolutely, and we tell that to people. There's two reasons.
Yeah.
Either your house is really totally trashed,
Right.
or the price isn't right.
Now, if it's totally trashed, you'd have to lower the price even more.
Or
Because now
fix
we
it.
got to fix it.
Or fix it.
Yeah, same
Exactly
thing.
right, Joe. And,
And,
and it's
that
all
goes-
common sense.
And that goes hand in hand what we're seeing here in the mortgage industry, because we're doing a lot of renovation loans where people aren't finding the house that they love just because there's a lack of houses out there.
Yeah.
Right.
So they have to convert that to something that they love.
Yeah. And then they look at the new houses that are out there, and the values to build a new home is still a lot higher than a resale value that's out there today. I mean, we were under contract for one that I found somebody that is close, let's say 500, but if you built it, it'd be closer to 650, 700
right.
when you're in the higher end.
Well, that's always been the rule. Used houses sell less than new houses. I mean, that's been the rule.
Absolutely.
So the only way to make a used house, in theory, sell for the same as a new is to make everything new in and on the house.
Which I love to do.
Well, of course.
I think it's great.
And also,
first of all, you have to have the money.
The land that's
Little minor.
out there, is not in the best of locations. And
Yeah.
I'm sure Victoria can attest to this, that a lot of real estate is a location.
Oh, absolutely. Location makes a big difference.
That's the old
also.
rule. Location, location,
But
location.
you know what? If you still look everywhere all over the world, we're still the lowest prices that are out there. I mean, where can you go find what we offer to
Florida's
people?
a bargain. Period.
It is a bargain.
Yeah,
I mean,
it really is.
And that's the thing. If we have a local, it's high. They say, oh, my God, they'll never get that amount of money. And you get somebody out of state and they're, my gosh, all this for such a little amount.
Yeah.
It depends on who you have.
Other than that, T-bills, are they hovering at 3.10 or something right now, the 10-year?
Well, yeah. Actually, with the volatility in the market, the bonds have really rallied. Interest rates are coming down, or they're bouncing down a little bit.
Right.
So it's a good opportunity to lock in a great interest rate.
Well, what's a bounce down? What are you talking?
Well, everything in the mortgage industry is based on the 10-year T-bill, and that was up to almost 3.3%. Now it's down to 3.1%. So basically, that moves pretty much dollar for dollar.
Yeah.
So you're seeing about a little less than 0.25% reduction in interest rates as a result of this rebound in the bond market. So it's a good time to take advantage of that. Oddly enough, though, and this is a little bit on the concerning side. I mean, September typically sees a little bit of a spike in mortgage defaults. Typically, we see about a 5% increase in mortgage delinquencies in September. I can't explain it. It just happens that way every year. This year, we've seen a 13% increase in defaults.
Wow.
And that's a little bit concerning. Now, maybe you can blame that a little bit on Hurricane Florence and how that affected people's abilities to pay.
Are they showing that in regions, or is that just the overall number?
That's the national average.
Yeah,
So
you wonder what it's like in regions, because like we've had some calamities, major calamities, storms.
Right.
And you wonder how much of that affected it.
Yeah, and I suspect that we're going to see some, higher defaults in October as well, because we're always a month behind with these numbers.
Sure.
But Mike, everything slows down. Our restaurants slow down. Everything slows down. All businesses slow down. Because I always ask the question when I'm out there, how's everything going?
Yeah,
and they'll say, Victoria's really slow. So I think that makes a difference on how they pay their bills.
September, October are the worst. I mean,
Always
Always been. Look at Florida.
Always.
Even Floridians all leave Florida in September.
And
this
restaurants
is the highest.
closes.
Used to be. Remember
But
back?
October is the start of the season, and everyone starts coming back.
Well, and they are coming
by
back.
November even more.
A lot of them towards the end. These are the quote seasonals.
Yes.
Not the tourists, the seasonals.
What's very strange, though, is foreclosures are at an all-time low.
There you go.
Good.
And they should be. But that's not strange.
With property values as high as they are, I mean, if people do get into financial problems, they have usually an easier time selling their property versus allowing it to go into.
Well, there's another little side effect, Mike. You might notice that the economy is pretty hot. Unemployment is extremely low. Gross domestic product's extremely high. I mean, all things are humming just about as good as it ever has. In fact, statistically, I think it's as good as it ever has.
Now, what about when they say millennials aren't interested in owning anything? They're not.
They
gonna
are
be buying
little
homes.
houses. They don't want big.
But
They don't want anything
that's
big.
that's also a
But
general.
we've got what we've got. I
You know,
mean,
but
then they should own a condo, right?
There are so many
Condo.
things.
They like the little houses, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's the
they
little
really
house.
think that that's something that they're
Do they
just
even have such
asphyxiating
a
on.
thing around here? A little tiny house?
Well,
but those tiny houses are not up to code.
They're called
they
travel
have to be
trailers.
on.
They
have
really
to,
are.
It looks like a Ted shed.
No,
we
we
can't finance those, by the way.
No, but
Well,
and
because you don't
they're
own the
on
land,
wheels.
right, Mike?
No, they're
A
travel
lot
trailers.
of times they will put it on a lot, but the problem is that we have minimum square footage.
Yeah. The
Oh,
other side-
really? I didn't know that. What's
Yeah.
the minimum?
It depends on what program you have, but I believe that FHA will limit you at a minimum of 600 square feet, approximately, in that range.
That's interesting.
That's a big room.
I didn't know
there's-
that.
But there's also.
That's your bedroom.
Listen, I would tell you this, Mike, and I've lived long enough, and Victoria, you and I both, we heard years and years ago that there was no more houses are going to be sold. They're all going to go to condos because nobody could afford a house anymore. Do you remember
Right.
that?
Yes.
Well, so much for that.
Yeah,
That
it's
sure
not-
worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they made condos expensive with the HOA fees.
Well, not
Well,
necessarily.
but you know, when I average your HOA fees out, when I really, really do,
Yeah.
and a lot of them that might be a little bit higher that you say are 3 something, that includes your water, your sewer, your trash, your lawn
But see,
care. I mean,
HOA
But that's
think
like
about
getting
that.
a house
Insurance.
payment and a car payment all in one.
But wait a minute.
Yeah, but you still are making those payments in a home and a
There's no profit in these HOA fees. These are things that cost to maintain this property.
Absolutely.
There's no gouging here. Now, can there be some mismanagement to a point? Some, but the reality is this: if a house needs a new roof, it costs 12 or 15 grand. Well, if it's in the HOA fees, people are contributing. So
And it's called the reserve,
Yeah.
which we have even when we buy a single-family home, a reserve to pay our taxes and our insurance.
Yeah.
So they're just putting a reserve for repair work, which is nice. So you won't have a special
the
assessment.
key is there's no profit made to anybody.
No, and there shouldn't be.
Well, and I'm trying to say, so this is real dollar in, dollar out, dollar in, dollar out. If you go to any condo association, nobody gets a salary. All of the
I think the management company does.
Well, guess what?
That's a monthly fee.
But that's a monthly fee. That's part of that.
But that's got nothing to do with people that are running the HOA or the condo association.
Yeah, that's what I was going
Those are
to say.
expenses.
It depends on the involvement of the homeowner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there has been, as we know, where somebody that was running it and managing it stole money from the association.
Well, the stealing is different. Listen,
Yeah, and they went to jail for that.
that's okay. The bottom line is there's always going to be
That can happen anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, people that are honest, honest politician, oxymoron, I mean, it's Hey, Mike, any other good news?
Well, like I said, interest rates are low. There's still some really good mortgage programs out there. We have renovation loans. We have FHA loans that only require 3.5% down. We have first-time homebuyer programs that only require 1% down.
Yeah.
We still have the USDA programs in certain areas. It's 100% financing.
Yep.
If you're eligible for VA benefits, by far it's the best financing out there. We do a wonderful job of providing those veterans very good service and very
That's
good loans.
great. That's great. Hey, Mike, when you said 1%, so when you said first-time home buyers can get a 1%?
Down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
what
so
we
a
do
down
is-
payment of 1%, and then you can ask for help with your closing costs?
Sure.
Yes. You
Okay.
can get in with 1% under those
So
programs.
300,000 is
programs.
three.
too.
Hey, listen, can I be a first-time home buyer at my age?
Well, we define a first-time home buyer as someone who has never owned a property in the last 3 years. So, Joe, I believe
Joe,
I,
you
I
would.
can do
Hey.
that. Hey, Vic, find me a nice cheap house on the water where I can keep the big boat.
1%.
1%.
I don't think that program would work under that.
Hey, let me ask you a question. On that program, are there income limits and price limits, et cetera?
Yes, there are. And what we do is we look at the median income for the area, and you have to make something below that. Now, in certain areas, there are no income restrictions. So what we have to do is
What about
we have to
Palm
look
City?
in the area that you're yes.
How about Bessie Creek?
Yeah.
There are on most waterfront areas there are income restrictions.
Yeah, that's discrimination.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Believe
I've
it,
only
you need
asked
more
you
than
for
1%, Joe.
I
one
don't,
thing.
I don't make the income limitation.
Yeah, I heard that before. Hey, listen, I wouldn't be buying west of the tracks anyway right now. I'm
That
still
new bridge
fearful
still,
about the
yeah.
train and all
That train's going to go by so fast, you're not even going to know it.
Yeah,
Gone.
30 a day. It isn't the train. It's the time that the bridge goes down and comes back up, the railroad bridge. If you ever time it, it never does it in less than 20 minutes. I don't care if it's
But it
one.
has to give you a certain amount of time to prepare to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Boats don't
waterfront
have
is waterfront
boats
is
don't
waterfront.
have brakes, so it takes time to close. Then they go by. Then it takes time to open. So you're there for 15, 20 minutes.
I'm telling
I'm
you
just
this.
concerned with 50 trains going over a 1920s bridge.
Well, guess what? As soon as one falls in, it'll solve the problem.
Yeah, I don't want to. That's scary. That's big
Well,
time
the
scary.
key thing that I just look at is everybody's values. And I've stopped by that bridge many times, and I've timed it. And like I said, if just one engine is coming by, and of course they go slow running through Stewart at the bridge, you're going about 20, 25 miles an hour because they're not allowed to go fast. But the bridge goes down a good 10 minutes for it shows. Now, it does come back up a little quicker, but the whole time frame is usually at least 20 minutes for a one-car train.
And if you're at, let's say, Confusion Corner, on the west side, desperately trying to get to the hospital on the east side.
Interesting.
And you're in the ambulance.
Well, they're
that's
building
gonna be a problem.
they're building a hospital at Canner.
Yeah,
so
that's gonna help.
Yeah, that's going to help.
And you'd be dead in the meantime waiting for it to get built.
No, it's up.
No. But there's also south, right? You know, there's all kinds of
Yeah.
different hospitals. What Dan is saying, if that ambulance is stuck,
Here's the problem. I think the train was first. They already own the property. We're way beyond all that.
I know. I just still think it's going to fail miserably because I can't see them making a profit. That's just it.
Well, maybe it wasn't designed to haul passengers. It was designed to haul freight as the new Panama Canal expansion continues. And there's going to be more and more freight brought into Miami.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Hey, Miguel,
It is.
you coming at 4 o'clock?
Yeah, I should be there.
I'll see you, my man.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.
340-1590, 340-1590. Well, hey, I'll be glad when the election's over. I will be glad. I'm so sick of commercials. If anybody telling the truth on either side on these commercials, I mean, I just have
There might be one or two things.
I just know that the anti-billionaire ads make me think that we should vote for billionaires because they were smart enough to become billionaires.
Yeah.
Maybe they should know how to run things.
Well, I think Rick Scott made millions and millions and millions of dollars while he was governor. I said, man, this is a good deal.
I don't. Yeah.
But he did
Got
it.
the wrong
But he
job.
didn't do it by being governor. He did it.
Yes.
All of them,
other
I just,
ways.
but they don't want to say that. Hey, he did it by being dishonest. We know that. Every one of these guys running is a crook. You know
isn't
that.
Bill
That's what
Nelson
they all
a
say.
millionaire?
Hey, of
Many
course,
times over.
of course he is.
In
that,
46 years
that
and
adds
where
a
he's
wash.
I'm just telling you, it's just everybody is a crook and everybody's a multimillionaire or a billionaire. That's just all there is to it.
But
and if they're not, they
the
will be.
commercials are telling you how bad they are.
Yeah.
Unlat you won that lottery.
There
That
you
would
go.
have been nice.
I
won
$1.6 billion.
I won $16.
Wow. And what did you do with that money? I'd
Big
like
deal.
to know.
I
Did
blew
you go
it.
to McDonald's?
Blew it quick.
Blew it quick.
I think McDonald's is more than 16 anymore.
So Victoria Lloyd Remax of Stewart's been here, and we were talking to Mike Paulus, mortgage broker. We got Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, Joe Martek, financial advisor, and Greg Fasula, our only liberal, is not here today.
He's a moderate.
Yeah, right. He's got that part really well hidden.
But I know when he goes to vote, he's not going to vote for anybody that's wearing blue. He's going to be red down the middle.
I wouldn't bet on that.
Hey, guess what? Mike, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Thank you so much. You know, it's been a week of real illumination. I'm calling about two things. First, that finally someone has had the courage to drive a stake through the heart of slavery, and that man is Kanye West.
Yeah.
Letting his people know you can empower yourself. You don't have to be victim. If you do, you're choosing it at this point. I love his message, and I agree. I support him completely.
Yeah, he has been a bit vocal, which is good.
And then the other thing, Miss Megyn Kelly proved you can't win the political correctness game. She gave sincere apology, and she still lost the job.
I think they just wanted to get rid of her. That ratings were down, and they were paying her too much money.
But you know, when you saw her though with the little panel, she was always on the wrong side, and they were always making these sad, sour faces at her. They haven't liked her for a while.
Oh, I know that.
That's what Victoria said.
And I think
Yeah.
your comments about Kavanaugh really is it more so than the other comments.
And I don't know what the clause is. I think it was $69 million for 3 years. And when you have that and there's some kind of clause, I think they knew just how to get her out.
You know, Mike, I think you and I would have taken that job for less money.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And
what's
said
interesting,
more. That's
she
the
was
scary part.
president from the start. She can't come back to Fox, so you wonder what her future is.
Well, I
So
think
join O'Reilly.
I think
A
she should
housewife.
she should be the next press secretary.
that's really
Hey, there you
good.
go.
I
I'm
think
happy with Sarah, though. She's
I love her,
an
yeah.
answer for
she's
everybody. I
she's
love her.
phenomenal. She's
She
phenomenal. I'll tell you that if he ever lets her go, he's crazy. She's the best.
But how
The
much
only
can
one
the
that
poor
might
girl
do
take?
a better job would be Miss
Well-
Veronica if she wanted it.
Oh no, I would
handle
make
them all.
people too angry.
Well, here's what you have to be able to do in that job is get upset but not show it and
Oh,
be
and
able.
that's not me.
And I don't think you could get away with that.
No. Mm-mm.
You know, she'd drive that Harley right up their rear ends. I hate to tell you. So.
That'd be a sight to see.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, she's a sight to see most every time we get going on here. Nobody does more homework than our producer here when it comes to politics. She's searching constantly to find out. the stuff behind the scenes. So it's an interesting. Hey, we have had a magnificent run here for a long, long time, and Ms. Veronica has been a monster part of it.
Oh, she's wonderful.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
best.
Very true. Well, I'm a Democrat, and I'll be voting straight Republican ticket in a few days. I do
You
it
hear that,
right
Greg?
in person. I don't do it early by mail anyway, but right in person.
I've already been.
I did the same. Dan and I were talking about it, about voting early. I said, I like going the day of the election and seeing how many people, and I don't mind standing in line for a half an hour. And
Why don't you vote early, Joe, and then go
And do again?
hold signs up for your candidates?
There you go.
I see that really I've never
And
understood at all.
Influence people.
That really influences people, right?
That's
Just
right.
Or
one quick
shoots-
thing
or
about
shoots
money.
Joe.
I learned recently that the huge Mayan population was in Guatemala, which I never knew.
They're coming
and
this
more
way.
than gold, they valued jade. Did you all know that?
No.
It was their real value.
So how much are
Where
they
did
bringing?
they get jade
How
from?
much are they bringing?
China.
China.
How much are they bringing to Texas?
They put it into their king's teeth. It was much more highly valued than gold. And I never knew they were in Guatemala.
Well, you know what, Mike? You are a.
That might be a new trend, green tea.
As information that is critical to this show, you have just won the jackpot.
All right. That's what I live for each week. Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks,
Mike, thanks
Mike.
for calling.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
340-1590, 340-1590, and we're about out of time.
You got about a minute and a half.
Got about a minute and a half.
So when we come back, the election will be done.
Thank you, Lord. Next Tuesday, right?
We can talk about results.
Well, we will. We will. I am just having a hard time envisioning. Of course, you remember when Trump got elected, all the polls said he had no chance in the world?
No chance.
No chance. And when he
No
was running
path.
against 15 other Republicans, no chance.
No chance.
And I just can't. Every time we see a rally for Trump, 100,000, 20,000, 50,000.
What's amazing though is now you can get it on cable, but if you look on the internet, and they tell you how many people are watching, and you've got 4 and 5 different feeds on the internet, and you've got 20. I mean, you've got hundreds of thousands of people actually viewing these rallies. Nobody talks about it.
The key thing is what I'm trying to say is I think most of us are just fed up with business as usual. And I said this to a girl I dated who was a flaming liberal, and we had one date. And I said, in my opinion, Trump is a loose cannon that gets things done. And I don't care how he
fearless.
gets things done. He gets them done.
Well, here's what I suspect. On the governor's race and the senator's race between,
Quickly, Dan.
our current senator, if it's close and the Dems lose, they will not accept the results.
Well, of course
They're
not.
going to go and fight it tooth and nail.
Of course they will.
See you next week.
Adios, guys. Anyway.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.